be great to come back and work with the cast again, but nothing major like that. Many actors have died on this show in the past, have come back as walkers. Was there a part of you that wanted to do that? He says, no, really, no. I didn't want to turn into a walker. Greg Nicotero's company KNB does an incredible job with the special effects, but out of respect for Carl and how devoted to the character people are, I didn't want him to go through something like that. So he saw that as somehow it would be disrespectful to the character. I don't agree, but I understand it.
and also we didn't even see him die, really.
Yeah, we heard it.
We heard it, but we didn't see it.
So you're saying he's still alive and everyone should realize that he'll be back next week?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
They ask, will you continue to watch the show? He says, hell no. Just kidding. He says, of course. I've always been a fan of the show and I always will be. And they ask, is this episode the last viewers will see of you this season? He says, yes, it's the last you'll see of Carl.
Interesting. So he's not even going to come back as like a memory.
Well, he was saying there was talk of it and he hopes so.
Oh, okay.
But there's nothing concrete, it sounds like.
Now, he sounds very sanguine and very cool about leaving the show. I had heard, correct me if I'm wrong, that he was not happy about leaving the show. Didn't we talk about that the end of the last season?
Well, no, his dad had posted something that Scott Gimple told us that Chandler that he was going to be on the show for 3 more years, and so for him to take that back 2 weeks before his 18th birthday, oh yeah, he's 18, was just a slap in the face or something like that, right? Then he took it down a couple hours later, and he said that was really hard on Chandler. Yeah. But Chandler Riggs himself has never said anything except for that snarky tweet that I know of that's anything negative at all.
And the snarky tweet was funny. It wasn't that negative.
He's funny with his tweets. So yeah, absolutely. You're right. Here's Lenny James talking about his response to losing Chandler Riggs and Carl. It's heartbreaking, and losing Chandler's a real loss. He's a great spirit and a fine person. Good guy to have around. I like him a lot. He's very funny. He has a quiet confidence that belies his age. He also knows everything there is to know about the comic book, so he's like an encyclopedia. About the fans' angry reaction. The reaction they're having, the righteous reaction, is the reaction that I think most of us on the show had when we were told it was going to happen. I remember checking at least 5 or 6 times. In the end, I think it's a really, really brave choice. Every now and then we have to take our audience by surprise so they don't get too comfortable with the apocalypse. Every now and then, like every other episode. so they don't think they're in control of it in a weird way. We did that when Negan arrived and he took out Abraham and Glenn. I think what the writers and producers are doing with Carl is another one of those. Norman's character, Daryl, never existed in the comic books. Melissa's character is long gone in the comic books, Carol. So as much as we're allowed those characters who outlive their comic book existence, every now and then we're going to take out a character before they're finished in the comic books. This is a way of reminding them that too is possible, so people don't sit too comfortably in their seats.
Well, don't worry, I'm not comfortable.
So you got your wish, Lady James. Very uncomfortable. Congratulations. Let's see. Yeah, so there was one with Greg Nicotero, and he's saying that he didn't know where those visions were going when they first shot them. And yeah, I don't care about that. Gimple and Deadline, they said, what is the scene showing Negan in the future about, and what is it telling us going forward? He says, that is Carl's idealized vision of the future. That's what he hopes happens, that somehow, some way they can make peace. That's what he's asking his father. That is brought to life there.
Yep.
About fans not liking that Carl died. Obviously, I want our audience to be happy, and I don't like them in pain, but it's part of a very big story that takes a lot of hard turns. But honestly, it's going towards a greater purpose and a greater message.
Oh, that's nice. Good.
Yeah, so don't worry that 47 people have died off, because it's all for the greater good.
Greater good. It's for a greater purpose.
Yeah, don't worry. I wanted to mention recently Grace and Mr. Blog, they ended their long-running podcast Under the Comic Covers.
Yeah.
You may know. And they've also decided along with that they're going to go ahead and not do comic talk anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think they're just kind of over it. And which is a bummer because I know that a lot of you guys really liked that. And I think they did a fucking awesome job on it. So I was sad too, but I got to respect it, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We'll miss him.
But we have totally got it covered. I mean, I was thinking, should I just do it myself? But because I'm totally caught up in the comics and I love it. But I'm like, no, it's fun to have other voices on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of listeners who are super into the comic. And one of those is Lucy Hinney from Scotland, who was on Game of Microphones a couple of times. So if you heard her, she's really intelligent and energetic, and she's a big fan of the comics, and she's an academic, so she really has some good insights about things.
She's wonderful, and the accent.
Yeah, and you get to hear her accent. So when I told Mr. Blog, he said, quote, "Lucy's a perfect choice. She's so lovely." And then on the Patreon Facebook group, he also said someone spectacular will follow after us. So she has his blessing, just so you guys know.
Yay! That's awesome.
Yeah. So she and I recorded our first one actually earlier, but you'll hear that in a few minutes here, and it was really fun.
I'm going to listen to it, even though I'm not caught up with the comics.
It's really spoilery on the comics, so you shouldn't listen to that unless you don't care. Yeah.
And don't worry, my memory is really poor. I won't remember.
Speaking of spoilers, the rest of the news is kind of spoilery, or potentially anyway. So if you don't want to hear potential spoilers, I don't report, like if I hear like a script leaked out and there's the plot's out, I will never say anything like that. But I will say some things that might point to stuff coming up to the show, but it's all speculation. So if you don't like that, you should move ahead to the next
I'm going to move ahead. Is that okay?
Okay. I'll see you in the future.
Okay.
So it's been reported that Lauren Cohan has not been happy with what AMC is offering for season 9 because she's at the end of her contract now.
Oh.
And it's what I read says she doesn't want salary parity with Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus, the highest earners, but she doesn't like what she's been offered. And now, per Variety and Hollywood Reporter, she's booked a lead role in ABC drama pilot Whiskey Cavalier. So that sounds like she's done with The Walking Dead to me. But yes. Scott Gimple says negotiations are still ongoing to have her in season 9. He, quote, "Well, these sorts of negotiations do happen all the time in television, and we're working on it. We're all talking, so stay tuned."
I don't know. She sounds like she has a new show.
Yeah. It's like your girlfriend got married to another guy, dude. I think it's over.
I think it's just time to send her a nice China set and call it a day. Here's though, wait, let's go back just a little bit. And you said salary parity with Norman Reedus, and I was thinking Norman Reedus has essentially he utters 5 words per episode, maybe. She has been kicking ass and taking names, and she has been doing a lot of stuff. She's the freaking leader of the Hilltop. Mm-hmm. And she manages not to show her pregnancy. I mean, that in itself deserves a raise. So I'm kidding. She should have parity at least. She should have parity. Reedus. Yeah.
But she's a woman, though. Just kidding. Haha, I'm so funny. No, I agree. You're right. She's like Reedus. I mean, I think people are kind of losing their heart on for Daryl lately anyway. Yeah. But he's still a huge force. Like if you go to Walker Stalker.
Yes.
I think all the women stopped listening to me right now, but I was just kidding. I'm agreeing. I think Lauren Cohan's been doing an amazing job, and she deserves to make as much, maybe not as Andrew Lincoln, but as much as anybody else on the show. Yeah.
And by the way, same with Michonne. I think Michonne also deserves, I think Michonne, here's who I think should have salary parity. Daryl, Michonne, King Ezekiel, Morgan, Carol. Did I say Carol? And who am I leaving out? And Lauren Cohen. I think they all, and quite frankly, Carl before he left, probably he was. I mean, just. I'm sorry, I'm not being very articulate about this.
Well, why don't you
I'm
just
amazed.
name everyone who doesn't deserve to make as much?
Begins with a knee and ends with a gan.
Just Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He deserves nothing.
Sorry,
He should have to pay to do that.
I'm sure Jeffrey Dean Morgan is a lovely person, and in fact, my neighbor told me about a cute little video where he's cuddling a donkey, a little donkey who's his donkey.
Yeah,
and donkeys are great because
they're
like big dogs, and apparently he's like a really, really sweet human being, and I love that. And I would go up and give him a big hug and kiss. I think he's great. But having said that, yeah, he deserves. What am I saying? He deserves salary raises for everybody. Hear that, AMC?
And then lastly, this is spoilery about the Walking Dead character who's crossing over on to Fear the Walking Dead, and also about Fear the Walking Dead going forward. So if you don't want to hear that, skip ahead. So in this interview on Deadline with Scott Gimple, they say, so the crossover is not a step back in time, a prequel. He says, you know what? I can answer that one. It's like a secret story that Morgan never shared. We're moving forward. It'd be kind of cool if we had like young Lenny James, like it's a prequel, like Gotham, but this is not a prequel. I will say, and it's important, it's not a prequel, but we do play with time in interesting ways in this upcoming season of Fear. So I don't want to sell like everything is happening on this precise timeline that I'm giving you. We do play a little bit with time and Fear, but as far as Morgan goes, we're not telling a story about Morgan's past. Man, as I read his stuff, I realize it's all over the place.
I know, I have no idea what you just said.
Sounds like it's they're gonna show some, I don't, this is speculation based on reading this cryptic thing, but they'll move Fear to present day and Morgan will go over there, but then they'll also still show some stuff in the past of Fear back and forth. Who knows? I don't know. Because, you know, Fear is a couple of years earlier in the whole zombie apocalypse, but Morgan's going over there. So we were wondering if it would be Morgan before he came back to The Walking Dead or...
I think that statement confirmed nothing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sorry, I shouldn't have read that.
No, I'm glad you did. It was like word salad.
It sounds like it's not. I think it is going to be in the present day, but who knows? He said, you know, from the way you're talking and crumbs you and Kirkman have been dropping in recent months, especially with your new Uber gig, him being overseeing Walking Dead stuff, sounds like Morgan may not be the last crossover between The Walking Dead and Fear. He says, well, I don't think it's the last, though I don't think it's going to be happening all the time. That's basically it. So he's saying that there's possibilities for more crossovers going forward.
Different coastlines. I mean, one's happening on the East Coast, one's happening on the West Coast, right?
That's right. And there's lots of zombies in between.
Hungry zombies.
All right. Time for our second and final sponsor. Here's a task for you. Pick out a wine you love, except it can't be one that you have had before. How do you do that? This is a rhetorical question, by the way, because the way you do it is by using our sponsor, Winc, W-I-N-C. Winc makes it really easy to discover great wine by shipping wines that are personalized for you right to your door. And the way they do that is they give you this palate profile quiz asking questions like, how do you like your coffee? How do you feel about blueberries? Different things like that. And then they pick wines based on that. Then you get them once a month. It's an awesome, like Christmas every month, all starting at just $13 a bottle. I got mine recently. I have a box. Jenny and I opened one the other day. It's really good. The more wines that you rate, the more personalized your monthly selections are. And then each month they have new delicious wines like their insanely popular summer water rosé.
Ooh.
There's no membership fees or anything. It's really a versatile, flexible. You can skip any month. You can cancel it anytime. Shipping is covered. And if you don't like a bottle, they'll replace it with the one that you'll love.
Oh, that's great.
You did this before.
I love Winc. Yeah. There's a picture I found the other day that I took of a wine tasting party that we had, and we had all wines from Wink. It was really fun. So we had about 6 bottles out, and when we did tastings, we had cheese and crackers, and it was so fun.
I want to be there right now.
Yeah, I know, right? Right? It was, oh man, that was a good time. Yeah,
Cool.
Wink's wonderful.
Well, you can discover great wine today by going to trywink.com/deadcast. You get $20 off your first shipment. That's
nice.
Bottle of wine right there.
Right.
So that's trywinc.com/deadcast for $20 off. Trywink.com/deadcast.
Thanks,
you,
Wink.
All right, now it's time for listener moans, groans, and grunts.
All right, this first one comes from Paige Allen, who wrote, I loved it. The Walking Dead hasn't hit me emotionally like that in quite a long time. The scene between Carl and Judith got the tears rolling. I'll admit it. I liked that the flash forwards were Carl's dreams for the future, and I'm pretty sure Morgan is going full on clear mode again. It may cause him to have to abandon the groups and go out on his own, maybe even to become a villain to another group somewhere else. Hint, hint. That would be crazy. Oh,
Morgan as a villain.
Don't become a villain. No.
Stop. Nick Cotero was saying filming Morgan going around stabbing people was like doing a John Carpenter movie.
No.
Aubrey Noel says, I'm so glad Carl is making those memories and things that will last with Judith, the handprints, photos. It's making me hope that Alexandria will survive the long run, so those remnants of him will always be there for Rick.
Yeah.
Oh, hopefully they didn't get burned up when...
Yeah, when it was firebombed.
Right.
Yeah. I thought about his little tree or whatever it was that he planted at the very end. I was thinking it might have been a tree. I'm like, don't kill that, man. That's Carl's. Lori Himsel Kane writes, I'm going to miss Carl. He's been with us since the beginning. Watching him grow up made his death harder. I basically cried the entire time, except when Morgan was ripping out intestines. That shit was awesome. I love our listeners. They're great.
Yeah, watching him grow up. That's true. You can't say that about anybody else on the show, really.
Nope.
Maybe Glenn a little. Jillian Moreau says, this was by far one of the most difficult deaths we've seen, in my opinion, since Lori. Up until Lori, it was Dale. But for me, as impactful as it was, and I ugly cried, I really wish the reveal of the bite and what we saw last night would have been in the same episode. I think it would have been that much more heartbreaking not having 2+ months to stew over the fact that Carl was going to die. Hats off to Chandler Riggs. I think he did wonderfully. And Michonne's portrayal of a basically grieving mother was amazing. That's true. Yeah, we didn't really give her credit, but she was very emotional and good. Glad the season is back, but the way they ended the episode with Rick under the tree looking like he's dying with an open abdomen wound has me very nervous.
Do we know that that's what it was?
I don't think so. It was red, and I thought it was more in his ribs. So I don't think we saw it open. It just looked like his shirt was red to me. I could be wrong.
No, he has a destiny to fulfill. Carl dreamt it.
I wonder if we'll ever still hear Rick saying Carl again. I don't think so. So sad.
It's very sad. Unless he just cries his name out, in a field one night when it's windy. Carl.
Yeah. Now I'm going to be sad every time my phone rings because this is my ringtone.
I like the second one.
Maybe I should change it.
Where were we? Oh, Michelle Forbes. Okay. Michelle Forbes writes, kind of feel bad about all the times I thought Carl was being such a little shit. He did a great job in this episode, and I'm going to miss him. I lost it when I realized that the old Rick sequences were Carl's visions. I even for a second hoped that the Negan part would come true. But I'm over that. Negan still has to die. Then Rick can make the rest happen. Yeah.
Yeah, just go ahead and kill Negan. It's fine.
It's fine.
Paula Hopper says, I'm hoping Henry won't be taking Carl's place in the comic plot on the show. This is the first time in a long time I've cried over a character death. I hope killing Carl off doesn't bite them in the ass. Yeah, I don't want Henry. It doesn't seem that compelling to me right now. I kind of agree with Carol. You should have stayed in the cottage.
Yes, exactly. God, Henry. You're grounded. Look at the flowers. Robin Cooper Simon says, I guess I'm dead inside because this episode didn't affect me at all, but I've never been a Carl fan. Ducking. The Morgan scenes were way more intense and gross.
Yeah, and you're not alone, Robin. A couple other people said the same thing.
Yes.
Rebecca Louise says, ooh boy, that was an emotional episode. I came armed with tissues and I sure needed them. What an incredible episode. The pacing was great. A perfect mix of action and slow moments. I knew Gavin was dead as soon as he had more than 2 lines of dialogue. Of course, we knew that Carl was going to die, but I still wasn't prepared for that goodbye. I've spontaneously cried several times in the couple of hours since I finished watching it.
Oh, man.
This is one of the best episodes in a very long time. In fact, I think it was one of the best episodes ever. See, Gimple, look what you can do when you try. I really think Gimple gets a bad rap because he's written some amazing stuff. And I just think it's gotten a little too repetitive and maybe he's a bit out of gas. But I don't think we should lose sight that he's, well, this is my opinion. Everyone doesn't share it, but I think he's done some pretty great stuff on this show.
Yeah, and I would agree. And this makes me very hopeful for the rest of the season. I'm actually really, really looking forward to the rest of the season now.
Yeah. And no matter what happens, it was also nice that we got to come back to the show, to this great episode, and you and I are podcasting on it right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If it goes downhill from here, at least we have this.
We'll always have this moment.
Yeah.
Karen Shi writes, I'll check and see if I have a pulse. I'm trying to figure out why this episode didn't affect me as much as I hoped it would. I've always been fascinated by Carl, his potential, and what he symbolized in the Walking Dead universe. But aside from the Carol Morgan parts, I found the episode underwhelming. I guess I also let behind-the-scenes news affect my prism. This wouldn't be the first time off-screen dealings have diminished the quality of the on-screen stories. Dumpstergate, the season 6 cliffhanger. That said, Chandler Riggs gave a great performance. Best of luck to him and his career. We'll miss our Carl. Interesting.
Yeah, I think she's
the
talking
scenes.
about like the stuff I mentioned with Chandler's dad and everything.
Yeah.
Thinking that he might have left the show because of contract stuff rather than story. Laura Willie Swink says, despite an outstanding performance by Chandler Riggs, I felt the whole Carl death scene had way too much exposition and projection for the future of the show rather than just letting it play out organically. Like the writers are pleading with us to stay on because things are going to change. But honestly, I was more invested in the Morgan, Carol, and Ezekiel storyline. But this is my main gripe with Walking Dead writers. They continue to recycle character story arcs. Or should they be considered story Ferris wheels? Morgan is back to his bloody clearing ways. Did his time with Eastman mean nothing? Or was it just a way to fill up some episodes? Some of the characters seem to make no progress, but simply shift from pacifist to madness with no gray tones in between. I know that there are more angles to Morgan, Rick, and Daryl, but lately it seems they just keep going around in circles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like it's repetitive. And like even with this Morgan or Rick, like now that he has promised that he will work towards this vision, I'm pretty sure what we know is that the executives have said they want this show to go on for 20, 30 years. And I know Andrew Lincoln's not going to want to stay around for that long. So that means I don't know, maybe he will realize this vision and then he'll die. I guess that could be a possibility. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's about the show having the courage to end it when it makes sense creatively versus right now they're operating on a business sense, business over art.
Yes.
Or fear that they can't come up with other shows to take The Walking Dead's place, which is admittedly a really tough task since that's such a cultural phenomenon. But, it's not about let's do its best artistically for the show. It's let's do its best financially. That
really does seem to be the case. And then you end up saying, well, this worked. Let's keep doing this. Yeah. And that's when you get the feeling that you're on the Ferris.
Returns. Yeah. And you feel like if characters do keep going back and forth too much, then it stops meaning anything.
Oh God. Yeah. And I'm like, let's let Morgan learn. Let's let him Let's let him grow as a character instead of just ping pong back from Stone Cold Killer to, Zen Buddhist.
Morgan is one, as I said before, that I'm almost on board with because it did feel like it was sort of manic. Like, I'm not going to kill or hurt anyone, even this wolf guy who has just told me, if you let me go, I'm going to kill a bunch of people around here. And it felt like he was so extreme, and the audience suddenly hated Morgan for that. And then the barrier broke, and now he just snapped, and it feels like he's just been crazy this whole time.
Yeah, he almost needs his own soundtrack. Okay, Jennifer Rain says, I'm sorry, but I hated it. I was looking so forward to it, and it just stunk. Felt very rehashed. I just wanted Carl to go and let's move on. So many of my friends stopped watching the show. I've been the show's cheerleader, but last night I finally agreed it's time to end the show. Dragged out like they've run out of stories. Of course, I'm the type of watcher that has invested so much that I'll keep watching, but it's time for the end. Sorry, guys. I was so disappointed. Yeah, we hear you, Jennifer.
And then Michael Koska says, top 5 episode of the series. Extremely well paced, fantastic acting across the board, and I'm actually okay with the decision to kill off Carl because of how well done this episode was. Ballsy deviation from the comic that I think paid off. Chandler really stepped it up in this episode and gave his best performance in this series. I was dreading where the show would go from here, but now I'm curious / anticipating what happens next. Can't really argue with either one of those.
Paula Hopper writes, I'm not crying, you're crying.
Okay, a couple of emails from Rennie. Jason and Karen, having been conditioned by Glenn's emergence from under the dumpster never to trust this show again, I didn't believe that Carl was really going to die until he gave the hat to Judith. That was the moment I realized they weren't faking us out and he was really gone. During the episode, with its tight close-ups on Carl, I developed a theory as to why they killed the character off. Did you notice that dark beard stubble on cute little Carl? Chandler Riggs is just growing up too fast for the story's timeline. That's what we were saying. Jason, thanks for the shout out on the last podcast. That was a pleasant surprise, Rennie. Yeah, absolutely. Aww. Love you. We met her in San Francisco she was at the bar.
Oh.
Yeah, Rennie.
Fabulous. Terrence Daniels writes, this was a great episode to me. I didn't think I would be so sad about Carl's death, yet I am. I have grown to respect who he has grown to be. His childhood was never an easy one. First, you find out your dad has been shot and is in a coma, only to hear he is supposedly dead. Then you have the dead trying to kill you. Not to mention, you lose your best friend, Sophia. Have to kill your stepdad, Shane, and your mom, not that much later on. Oh yeah, on top of that, you get shot twice. I could write a book about what he's been through. My hat comes off to you, Carl. You found the strength to still do what Rick or Michonne wouldn't have been able to do in the end. Now, will Rick fight for the dream that you envisioned? Will his pain of losing his child that he has fought so hard to protect turn into a nightmare? Good questions, my friend. Yes. Yeah. There you go.
Okay. And then these next few emails are, I got some mixed reviews on my review of Black Panther last episode that I did by myself without talking to anybody else. So here they are. First from Bilquis Blythe. She says, loved your Black Panther review, Michael B. Jordan. Well, actually, so I talked about how the Black Panther was great because not only is it a great Marvel movie, just straight up, but also it had a lot to do. It had mostly black characters and actors, and I felt like it addressed issues that are uniquely from the black experience. Yeah. And so some people took issue with my phrasing, which I kind of figured they might. Like I even said during the review, I'm kind of nervous talking about this, so give me your feedback. So here it is. Bilquis Blythe says, loved your Black Panther review. Michael B. Jordan played Oscar Grant in Fruitvale Station.
He was
also
so great. Did you see Fruitvale Station?
No, the same director, by the way, as Black Panther.
Yeah, Ryan Coogler. And by the way, so Fruitvale Station in Oakland, and Oakland got a lot of love in Black Panther.
That's where he used to live. He and Coogler are like Tarantino and Jackson. I hope they never break up.
Me too. Tiffany Holland writes, "Thank you, Jason, for doing a review of Black Panther. I wasn't sure you were going to do it at all because there has not been any promotions from your social media. Being as though Danai Gurira Michonne is the main character, it being that she's in it. With that said, I wish you would have been able to converse with another person to have more perspective, like with the other movie reviews you did, to fill in the gaps of the things you didn't know about. For example, the comic book was before the Black Panther movement. It was just coincidental with the name and timing. Oh, that's interesting.
I think I had said that I thought the Black Panther character had taken its name from the social movement.
Yeah.
But it turns out, and a few other people corrected me on that it was coincidental.
Oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Being able to see the excitement and smiles on so many people having the pleasure to cosplay as characters or see the others in African-American garb was amazing. I wish you could have seen past the whole Black experience thing and celebrate the joyous occasion. Were they talking about the a Comic-Con or?
No, I think she's just talking about the garb of the people in the movie because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having the pleasure to cosplay as characters or see others in African-American garb was amazing. Okay. The movie was so much more than that. You could even say historical. You have to look past your bias to see what I mean. Think The Matrix. There is no spoon. I don't know what that means. If you don't know, I don't know if you stayed till the very end because King T'Challa mentioned that very same thing. He mentioned how we should all work together as if we were all one tribe. Also, the Winter Soldier was shown at the very end after the credits. There's so much you didn't mention. OMG, Jason.
Yeah, the Winter Soldier was shown, and oh gosh, should we even talk about this? Because some people haven't seen the movie, but I don't think that's very spoilery, and I really didn't understand that sequence, so I probably should have. I don't remember where the Winter Soldier was last time we saw him, so yeah, you're right. I should have looked into that. I still haven't looked into it. I don't know what he was doing there or what that meant or anything. I assume he'll be in the Avengers movie.
If you're the type of person I believe you to be, think about this. Everything was approved by Disney/Marvel and by Stan Lee, whom had the longest lines in a Marvel movie. Awesome. And Jack Kirby, both writers of the comic. Those folks are known to be inclusive with their stories. Though it's taken a very long time for this movie to be made, it was made during the right time. Try not to see it as a black-white thing or a black perspective, black experience, but more of a celebration of diversity. Sit back and think it's about damn time we got to see someone of color as a superhero and not just a support character or the first to die, a gangster, drug addict, and so on. I believe that you want to see it for what it really is, but you struggle with it due to other reasons. That's okay, though. Thank you for supporting the movie. Thank you for taking Nico. So much more to say, but I'm done. I appreciate you taking the time and being honest.
Yeah, thanks. I don't disagree with anything you said here. I think you could look at this from a lot of different angles, and I chose a couple of different angles for my review, one of which was what you're mentioning here. You said Jack Kirby approved it, but he's gone, so he didn't approve it. I think you're saying he approved the movie, but he's dead, just so you know. But I think Stan Lee, yeah, and he was in it, and he was great. April Scott says, "Hi, Black listener here. I think you did a good job reviewing Black Panther. I will admit that I was on guard while listening, hoping that you wouldn't say anything out of order, and you did not, which I appreciate. You hit the high points of the movie and even touched on the cultural importance and relevance of certain scenes without trying to come across as an expert. I will offer that I've read Black Panther. The comic precedes the founding of the Black Panther Party by a couple months. I also appreciate that you described the Black Panther Party as a group who operated from a place of self-defense and not as these cop-killing bandits that a lot of mainstream media portrayed them as. There was also a period where the comics called him Black Leopard in an attempt to distance from the Black Panther Party, but that didn't last very long. Good job with the review, and I loved hearing from your son." I had Nico come on and do part of the review with me.
Did he like the movie too?
He loved it, yeah.
Yeah. Angel Woods writes, "Hi, Jason. I just finished listening to your review of Black Panther on your Walking Dead podcast. About a year ago, I found the podcast and it's kept me entertained at work. So yeah, thanks for that. Also, your son sounds adorable. And by the way, he totally is. A few things about the film. Black Panther doesn't really show the Black experience any more than Spider-Man films show the white experience. What it does do is discuss some very pertinent racial issues quite well, using an all-black cast and Black director, while still managing to be an entertaining superhero film. So the film is talking about a couple of things, like Black exceptionalism. Wakandans live in a technologically advanced society, Afrofuturism, but keep this to themselves, while watching other African nations, those of African descent around the world, in peril around them. This is a representative of the issue of Blacks that have gained privilege in the face of tremendous inequality, and questions whether or not there is a responsibility to use their privilege to help the disadvantaged community. They discuss early on in the film whether or not to open their borders. Killmonger is representative of those of African descent around the world, specifically America, who feel a connection to Africa, Wakanda, but simultaneously abandoned by it or in conflict with it. There are often unfortunate divisions between Africans and African Americans, diasporic Africans, because of slavery. So like Killmonger, it's in his blood, and yet he's removed from the culture. That's why it was so powerful that in his higher plane experience, he met his father, not in the African planes like T'Challa, but in an apartment in Oakland, where they've both been abandoned. Final layer, I promise. Civil rights and uplift. Killmonger wants to give Wakanda's tech to disadvantaged Blacks the world over so they can turn the tables of the prejudice and the hatred that has and continues to destroy so many lives. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. T'Challa opts for pacifism and shares this tech with the world to build bridges instead of creating further division. The weakest part of this film was the ending for me. Killing Killmonger and opening up a Wakandan community center, there are many of those in African American communities already, seemed toothless and a little too dismissive. Also, Michael B. Jordan is the most mainstream cast member probably, but the film is like a who's who of Black actors that have been prominent and celebrated for a long time within the community. Angela Bassett is like the Black Meryl Streep. Yeah, she's amazing. I love her. Kudos for discussing this on the podcast, but maybe don't specifically ask African Americans to weigh in. See Blacksplaining, lol. Wow.
I wanted to hear what people thought of my review, not necessarily about the movie, but about what I said about it.
Yeah.
But I agree with all this too, except you said that Killmonger wanted to give Wakanda's tech to disadvantaged Blacks the world over so they can turn the tables on the prejudice and hatred that has and continues to destroy so many lives. I mean, specifically it's weapons, and he mentioned creating an empire. So, and as I said in my review, I think there's a lot of people who, just like you're saying, might think that T'Challa's way is not satisfying, and they might side with Killmonger. So it sounds like you might be one of those, but it sounds like he wanted a violent uprising, not just, I mean, when you say turn the tables, I guess maybe that is what you mean. But anyway, whatever. I think everything you're saying here is right, and if that didn't come through in my review, it's just because I wasn't articulate about it, I think. Yeah, I don't know, maybe we wrote back a little bit and forth about this, but she's really smart.
Yes.
So thank you for writing in. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, all of you guys.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, it's time for Comic Talk. This is actually the first part of the podcast we're recording this week, but it comes later in the episode. Weird. Anyway, so now, as you heard in the news section, which I will have said by this time, we're having a new thing with Comic Talk, and I'm so excited that my friend Lucy, who you have heard... Wait, Lucy, have you been on Walking Dead Cast before, or was it just Game of Microphones?
Just Game of Microphones. You always ask. I think in your head I've been on, but in my head, no.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, Lucy, if you've heard Game of Microphones, you heard Lucy come in and guest, and she was brilliant. And you've been a listener of Walking Dead Cast for a really long time, and I know you're a fan of the comics, so I'm just really happy that you agreed to give it a go with Comic Talk. So welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you as well. And thank you to Mr. Blog and Gracie for setting the bar really damn high. So apologies in advance.
Yeah, they'll be missed. But I know, I mean, I really like, I could have just done this myself, but for one thing, my memory is not the best, and I would need to go back and reread through the comics. But mainly, the main thing is it's just fun to have other voices in the podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely, for sure.
And I know people are going to love hearing your voice. So before we get into how this episode is different and similar to the comic, just can you tell us what kind of a comic fan are you of this comic?
Oh, pretty devout. I came to the show first. So I started watching the show way back in 2010, 2011 that it first aired. And within about a year, I was following the comics. I remember things like Glenn's death the first time round, and I properly sat down and read them beginning to end over the last couple of years. And I've actually been really enjoying the way that the comics have developed over the last kind of year in particular, since they kind of did the time jump. I've found it's actually been really quite fresh, and kind of a nice break from the show in some ways, which I think, has become a bit repetitive in some respects. So it's nice to kind of keep it fresh and hear some of that Kirkman voice that I think gets lost in the show sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, me too. I'm really loving the comic right now. I mean, I have been it's been even longer than a year. I think it seems like the last few years it's just been really firing, really good.
Absolutely. And like comic books are kind of like my guilty pleasure because I'm an academic by trade. So I spend a lot of time reading like big, thick, old books about theory and things. So to sit with a graphic novel like The Walking Dead is just amazing. And to be able to engage with literature in that way is super, super special. And thanks to Walker Stalker, I got to actually meet Charlie Adlard at 2060.
Yeah, I think that's
Walker
right.
Stalker.
Yeah.
And he's flipping awesome.
Yeah.
So that just added a whole new amazing
what did you
level
guys
to it.
talk about?
Well, he was very cute. He had his little son beside him doing little drawings as well. So we chatted a bit about his son's artwork, and he very kindly did a little sketch of a zombie for me and my partner, which hangs above our television now. It was just great. So it's one of our prized possessions, and he was just a really lovely guy. So yeah, that added a real kind of sense of the show is one thing, but the comics are, they're always going to have their own loyal fan base as well. And it's interesting that at the end of the day, it's just Kirkman and Adlard making these stories together on opposite sides of the Atlantic. It's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, and there's something a little more pure about that. They can just enact their own vision without having to please the group or anything like that. They can just do whatever they want.
Absolutely. And I love that Kirkman, he's quite on the ball, and he'll call himself out for things occasionally. Like he's said quite often, I wish I'd never cut Rick's hand off in the comics because it's actually a total bitch to draw when he needs to open a door. And I like that kind of self-deprecating, I don't always think things through and things aren't perfect, but this is what I feel. Whereas I feel the show sometimes is it's too much like, this was always the plan. Carl was always supposed to die at this point. And, own your shit. It's fine.
Yeah. There's no like PR department behind the comic directing what they can and can't say.
No, exactly. And Kirkman, I admire that kind of honesty. Sometimes he comes off as a little bit of a jackass, but other times I think it's perfect, Yeah,
absolutely. But he's a funny jackass usually. So that kind of makes up for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's interesting, he said recently that the way the comics have developed has changed as he's grown. Like when he started the comics, he didn't have a kid, and now he's got a son, and he's like, the way that I write Rick and Carl now, it has been altered by my experience of being a father. And I think that's really interesting that he's kind of grown alongside this comic that he's created. So I'm a big fan, a bit of a nerd about it.
Nice. All right. Well, this episode, just so you guys know, that we're going to be talking about the comic, all phases, so it could spoil any part of the comic. If you don't want to hear spoilers about the comic and possibly the future of the show, then you probably shouldn't listen to this segment. But with that said, I think most people know that Carl is still alive in the comic, so this episode veers off that path pretty distinctly. But we can still talk about some things that are kind of reflected or similar and different in the comic. So what would be one of the big things?
Well, for me, there were two things going into this episode that I was looking out for specifically. One was in terms of Carl's death, the death of Andrea in the comics, which happened fairly recently, within maybe the last year. In the comics, for those of you who've not read them, Andrea's kind of more in Michonne's role. She and Rick live together. Carl refers to her as mom. They're a happy family in all respects, and she gets bitten.
And she's also much more the way that most people who watch the show feel about Michonne, which is that she's very capable and cool and we love her. That's how the comic readers feel about Andrea in the comic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll always give the show props for having, a strong woman of color lead, basically. I think that's really, really impressive that Michonne is in that position. I think it's completely worth it. So I've been 100% in favor of them shifting that storyline over to Michonne rather than Andrea. And I'm glad that Michonne didn't get Andrea's death quite yet. Hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah. But my main point in mentioning that is just that, if people hear about Andrea in the comic, they might think that it's the same Andrea as in the show, and it's not.
Why was she so crap? I don't understand. I want to write an essay about why she just didn't work on screen. I just don't know. But yeah, so she's very much in that position as almost like the first lady of Alexandria. So she gets bitten in a situation where she's helping people, and she has that rare opportunity to die a good death, to see the people she loves to die in a warm bed. I think she even says that to Rick, this is what you've done, you've made it so that we can have this. So I wondered how much Carl's death was going to reflect that kind of sentiment. And the other thing I was looking at before we go back to Andrea was the flash forward, or rather the dream vision of the future, and how that reflects what has actually come to pass in the comic. So in terms of Andrea's death, I think there wasn't as much similarity as I might have hoped. Carl's death was actually quite a lot gentler. Andrea goes out kind of kicking ass. She doesn't let Rick mourn, she doesn't let him cry. She sort of says, this is how it's got to be and fucking deal with it. Carl sort of says the same thing, but it's much gentler. I think it's much more emotive in a lot of ways, in a different kind of way. What really comes across, I think, is both of them saying to Rick and to Michonne, you've got to be strong. You've got to stay strong. We've got to keep going and keep moving forward. So that was kind of the big parallel there.
They're also both relatively at peace about it. There's a calmness. Yeah, I hadn't actually considered that before you brought it up, but yeah.
I had really hoped that Carl would get the in-person goodbyes that Andrea got. I mean, she gets some amazing goodbyes. She gets Negan saying, I think it's something like, you were fucking hot and I would have been honoured to be killed by you, which I always thought was quite
That's
nice.
Right. Love that.
Quite an amazing show. Similarities a little bit with Eugene and Siddiq, in that Eugene is partly responsible for Andrea getting bit, and Siddiq, apologises and says that he'll try and make it something that he can honour Carl through living, that kind of thing. So those were similarities as well. And interestingly, Michonne is the one comforting Rick in both situations, because in the comic they're kind of, although there's not romance yet, I would say, between the two of them, they are very much best friends, and she is the one who props him up through it. So there's support there that I think is mirrored. And the idea of Rick making these things possible, Carl says, you made me who I am, you let me be who I am, you got me here. And Andrea says, you've made this possible for so many people. She calls it an oasis in a sea of shit, or something similar. So those were nice little kind of throwbacks to each. And the other was the flash forwards to Alexandria. Visually, it looked very like a panel by Charlie Adlard in episode 127, which is a full-page panel that just shows you Alexandria 2 years after the war, with crops growing, people working.
And this is real for people who don't know. So at some point in the comic, they after the war is over, they do a time jump, and it's 2 or 3 years. They don't really say, but it seems like a few years later, Carl's suddenly a teenager, like he is in the show.
Yeah, he's built as well. He's got muscly arms and stuff. It's weird.
And they, and it's much more idealized vision of things. For a while, they're planning a festival, and Maggie's still head of Hilltop, and Rick has gotten everything all organized, and there's lots of crops, and it just looks, you can tell that they used that as a template when they built Carl's dream world in the show.
And Rick looks spot on what comic book Rick looks at that point with the haircut and the beard, and
Right.
yeah, I'm not going to comment too much on that, but I think some of the ladies and men out there are probably as disappointed as I am with that haircut and that beard, but that's irrelevant. Comic book. Um, but yeah, very, very similar aesthetically. I enjoyed that quite a lot, although Negan's in a rather different position to what he ends up in the comic.
Hmm. Yeah. So in the comic, Rick does spare Negan at the end of the war. He actually slit
Yeah,
his throat, but then he survived, and then Rick spared him.
yeah.
But he's in prison for years, I think, a couple of
I think
years.
yeah, at least two. I think we're to believe that 2 years have passed roughly. Although Kirkman kind of goes back and forth a little bit
Right.
on that, but
That's right.
because we don't have Judith, weirdly, I think it's harder to tell.
Yeah. So, but even with TV show Judith, that's a little fuzzy too. Why does Judith
Just
get older and yet Maggie doesn't get any more pregnant? But
it's
anyway,
so. I'm starting to think Maggie's like faking a pregnancy now. I'm just like,
she's just
getting a bit
nuts.
ridiculous.
But
um,
yeah,
yeah, no,
so Negan, but then, so in the show we see Negan has become a model citizen, it looks like, and that I guess is because that's what Carl is envisioning, that everyone comes together and becomes friendly. But in the comic, even though he's in prison, you find out over time that actually he has had a change of heart, right? Would you say that?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's some amazing stuff coming up with Negan
Yeah.
after the Whisper War. There's one issue in particular. Put it this way, if Lauren Cohan isn't coming back to the show, I'm sad that we will never see that particular issue play
Yes.
out,
Such a
because
great
it's one of my
issue.
favorites.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal. And I could just, when I was reading it, I could see the two of them doing that, and I just thought, yes,
Be
but
so good.
who knows what will happen.
That's the one that turned me around on Negan, where up until then, even though for a couple of years in our time, he'd been saying that, he's on their side, I didn't believe a word of it. And after that issue, I thought, well, I think he's sincere.
Yeah, I don't know if he even believed it till that point.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think that it really, yeah, I think it's just such a powerful kind of moment there. And, it is one of the things that Comic Talk's kind of bittersweet at the moment, because so much of the good stuff that is coming up is kind of Carl centric and sort of centric on things that might not be there. So I'm interested to see how it turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's going to be fun is we've seen the utopia that Carl envisaged, and we know realistically that we're not going to see that exactly. But what we'll see is Rick trying to get there, and that in itself is going to be an interesting kind of journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And then it's like, will the courage, I mean, I think I probably will have already said this in the main part of the podcast, which I have not yet recorded, but I just wonder if the show will have the courage to, if they do make it there, end it there. I don't think so. I think Andrew Lincoln will leave the show before the executives at AMC have the courage to end the show.
I think what would be best, I literally was ranting about this in the car yesterday. I would be so happy if in the next couple of months we get an announcement that next season is going to be the last. I think that's the best thing they could do for the show right now. Or a push 10. Like,
Right.
I can just about cope with 10, but
Right. No more than that.
Yeah, I mean, the actors are falling off. I think it's quite obvious that Denai Guerrera, Norman Reedus, they've spoken about not being particularly on board with things like Chandler being written out, and it just doesn't bode well. And I kind of hope that they go out on a high, because it's been such a big show and such an important part of so many people's lives. It would be a shame if they kind of let it go to hell, especially when the source material is so good. So,
Right.
we'll see.
Well, even if it does end, I'm hoping that Kirkman, as long as the comic is as good as it is now, as far as I'm concerned, I would like him to just keep going with it.
Absolutely. And I think he's honest in the way he writes it. I don't think he'll stop till he feels he's ready, or that he's told the stories he wants to tell. So maybe in like 30 years I'll be like still doing Comic Talk in a basement somewhere. I don't know why I'll be in a basement, but
It'll just be this podcast will just be Comic Talk.
Still going. Us, maybe Rima, you might be there, right? Karen, those guys, the Facebook group. Hey.
Yay, hello. All right, well, that's a great first go at Comic Talk. We hope to hear you back next week, depending on whether anything for the show is in the comic. But we're also going to bring in some other guests, co-hosts, and it should be fun.
Yeah, it should be great. I'm looking forward.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Jason. Thanks.
No. No.
I got bit.